Now, I know we touched on this a little bit before, and then you and I have had a conversation about this ourselves, just about why Seattle has sort of seemed to distance themselves from Kurt. And I don't mean the fine people of Seattle who seem to adore Kurt as they should, but there's the sense we've also seen comments where people have said things like, I want to be able to proudly say I love Nirvana and not have people think that I love, you know, an addict, whatever junkie, whatever they want to, whatever thing they want to call it.
Disparaging term, yeah.
Exactly. Who took his own life. And so, of course, like we've talked about giving that narrative back to Kurt because that couldn't represent Kurt less. Yes, he had addiction issues, as we all have vices and we all have our own issues. And aren't we all so fortunate that we're not judged by that one part of our lives? But,
Yeah.
you know, but so why do you think that Seattle, there's nothing up, there's no monument to Kurt. We've got a monument to Jimi Hendrix, who was also an addict and died young. And that's fabulous. Jimi Hendrix was an amazing musician, but why are we not seeing that same respect for Kurt?
I don't know. And honestly, it was that sort of goes back to in some ways when he was still alive, there was, like I said, there was this sort of media, like, I don't know, backlash against them. They were just like bristling, and the city of Seattle couldn't have made it harder on that band. And they, yeah, and so I don't know, it just seemed to be this negative, this like not an unwillingness to embrace them for I have
Mm,
no idea why. Because my friends in the community I was tight with, we all loved him, and we all,
yeah.
all went to Nirvana shows when, especially before they were famous. But yeah, now it seems like you've only got the Mopop Museum at the Seattle Center, and they
Hmm.
have a dedicated Nirvana exhibit devoted to him. But other than that, the city is just like whatever. And there's, like you said, there are multiple Jimmy statues throughout the city, and granted, Jimi Hendrix had a couple extra decades, but I don't know. They really should embrace this, and maybe possibly when we get the whole thing reassessed, I'm being optimistic, but when we get the whole thing reassessed and the narrative given back to Kurt, and people go, oh, and the official narrative goes back to, oh, Kurt never would have done this to himself. He never would have left his daughter. He
Yeah.
never would have done this. And now you can embrace him because he was a fucking great songwriter and a great human being. He
Yeah.
was a cool person, a nice person, and seriously, he would have given the shirt off his back to you if he's like, here, I've got another one at home. I've probably got two layers on now,
Yeah.
he just,
Yeah.
yeah, he, like, without hesitation. And yeah, but yeah, I don't know. So why the city has this attitude has been beyond me, and is remains beyond me for I have no idea what reason they could have.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can we talk for a minute why you think this is important? And I know you just, you kind of went through it a little bit, but why do you think it's so important that we're doing this for a case that's been, nearly 31 years? There are lots of other atrocities that happen every day, and we're choosing to focus on this one. And why do you think why do you believe in what we're doing and think this is so important?
Well, far even beyond my personal connection and my personal reasons, like wanting to see this for my friend come the way it should be. Uh, it's because he became iconic. It is because, and that uh status has only been cemented. And so now, the further we get in time, now the legend becomes more real to people than the real person. So
Mhm.
this restores the legacy back to the real person for generations. Like 100 years from now, people will actually know that Kurt was a nice person who had his life stolen from him,
Yeah.
and and you know. Um, So I think it's really important because of his sustained influence, and people look up to him. And
Hmm.
he was a classic sensitive artist, but he also didn't have some of the stereotypes that people assume. He didn't he didn't revel in being a starving artist. He didn't think he needed to suffer for his art. He actually didn't
Hmm.
want to suffer for it. Initially, he thought, like when Nevermind hit, he did have a little thing of like, oh well, I guess now I have to be a now I'm famous, so now I have to be a junkie rock star. And then as soon as he got into it, he was like, oh shit, what am I doing? You know.
Hmm.
And those are other conversations that we had, but they're it was just it's a process. He his addiction was a process, and he was really in the process of undoing. He wanted to undo the addiction. He wanted to get away from that. He wanted to
Right.
stop that. He wanted to get away from the people that were hovering around him that continually refed it, including
Hmm.
his quote best friend Dylan,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
basically kept feeding him that. These people did not have his best interest at heart, and at least by January of '94, he was aware of that as far as what he said to me. Um, when we talked on my birthday, I still don't remember. I, I'm sorry, I didn't even look up the dates or anything. I didn't do any research, but I'm just going off my memory still. But he was either like in Phoenix or in Europe or some. I don't remember where. They had just gone on tour.
Yeah.
He was in Seattle. They went to Bob Lang and he recorded "You Know You're Right," and then somewhere in February he was on tour. And I think maybe I'm guessing maybe that was the time he was in Phoenix and called me, because that seems to ring true in my head. But the Nirvana heads will know, like, oh no, he was in Phoenix in '93 or whatever. So whatever is one of the things, but. And then I think they did go to Europe, so that's
It
possible.
did,
But
yeah.
anyway, he called me on my birthday, and that was the last time we talked. And since our last talk, I've kind of worked through those memories a little bit more just to try and recall. And the most I can remember is we just had a like, "How are you doing? You doing okay? And I'll see you soon." And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Did I mean, we've talked about this quite a lot, but with Francis, was he, did he not want Frances to be taken from him because he loved her, or was he afraid that he didn't want Courtney raising this child? Did you get a
Both.
sense? Okay.
He
So,
literally said, "I don't want her like twisting that little girl's mind, my daughter's mind, or something like that." And he also seemed to think that Courtney, would like turn her against him as she was
absolutely.
growing up and naive. And
Okay.
he at least these are things he expressed concerns. You know, if Courtney hears this, she may be extremely butthurt about it, but sorry, these are the things he said to me, so deal with it. Sorry,
No,
I have a lot of fire in me about this.
good, because it's been 31 years and people have been living off his dime, and that brings me back to Dylan. Do you think that Dylan and Callie and the people who were allegedly there when Kurt was killed, do you think they knew that their time of living off of Kurt's money specifically and his, money to get drugs was coming to an end?
hmm And they wanted to keep that money train going, and so it seems they glommed onto Courtney, who, by sheer coincidence, ended up having access to Kurt's money
Yeah.
after he died.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Absolutely.
now we can get back to it from the previous discussion. You asked me about the documentary that you guys did and the Joe Burns thing, and I I honestly kind of buckled in the moment because I was trying to not get uh, consumed by the emotion.
Of course.
Um, but so I can speak to that a little bit more clearly. Yeah, I think you guys have a great documentary, and and unfortunately, some of the footage is a little rough to watch, but
Definitely.
these are very important things that he is saying, um, and yeah, and so there it is. And yeah, so I definitely I was kind of hemming and hawing And I didn't really reinforce that you're like, so do you think that we're kind of like we're on the right path? I'm like, yes, you guys are definitely on the right path, obviously, because I've joined you.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I know I'm sorry I wasn't expressive enough in that moment
Oh
before,
no,
but I
we appreciate it.
definitely uh, think that you guys have nailed a lot of the things, and I'm glad that everyone's embraced my observation of the lights being out. I misspoke in our thing because I was stumbling. I said somebody I know. What I was trying to say is I was talking to somebody I know, and
Mm.
I was the one that actually noticed it from like photos and stuff. I'm like, the light was out. That seems weird that I would think the light would be on, so the electrician would come or whoever the person that quote found
Mhm.
him, who, which may have been set up or whatever. Um, that it seems like the light would have been on, but if it had been on for a few days, it may have aroused suspicion. People are like, what's up with the light? And
Yeah.
then someone else may have
Uh-huh.
prematurely found it. So
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we know that that the PI that was hired allegedly, to find Kurt by Courtney said that he went there and looked and didn't notice the greenhouse. So you would imagine if the greenhouse light was on, that would be a much it would be much harder to miss. So,
yeah.
we take that, for what we will. But yeah, so that was a very astute observation. Last question, does it piss you off at all that nobody's standing up for Kurt? That
Um,
friends and I know that you have I'm sure a level of understanding and empathy that I don't have because I don't know any of these people, but does it bother you at all?
oh yeah. Um, I am of two minds. It Yeah, sure, of course it pisses me off because it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Take one fucking look at the facts, and all of you friends that know me, that knew Kurt, you fucking know if you look at the facts that this is at least suspicious. And it's no tinfoil hat kind of bullshit. This is not like, oh, aliens came down. No, this is real, like, this is actually absurdly simple of a a, a wife and a marriage that was about to split, potentially murdering, I'm going to say potentially for legally, but
Mhm.
potentially murdering her husband for the money and to subtract the problem and to, again, gain control of the situation. And definitely, she is absolutely a controlling person, as millions of people can attest to. So yeah, it does frustrate me, but at the same time, I also understand because a lot of, again, I'll speak directly to them. A lot of you feel you have a lot to lose. You've acquired some fame or acquired some popularity and a position, and you don't want to become persona non grata. Well,
Mhm.
I'm stepping out and I don't have anything to lose. No one knew about me anyway because I was hiding away for all these years, and people end up hating me for this or thinking I'm a piece of shit or whatever. Then so be it. I'm doing this for my friend. And those of you who were his friends, you should really think about it and maybe have a look at some of the evidence. Get a hold of me, get a hold of us. And, behind the scenes, especially if you knew me, especially if you were, for instance, one of the people that called me that morning. Definitely get a hold of me. Let's talk because I think you would come around and I think you would actually go, oh, you're right. And as we do, because eventually we will, because eventually his friends are gonna see, oh yeah, you know, which side of history do you want to be on, honestly?
Yeah.
This is the ball is rolling, it's snowballing. Sorry, but the people that did this to my friend are going down eventually. And even if they don't, the narrative will shift because it is any one of 2 dozen things. It's the most unlikely thing in the universe, and all added up, it's just ridiculous. And so, this is going to be really looked at and hopefully reassessed and redetermined for the actual murder that it was. And when it is, I hope, you know, it's fine. also, that's I said I am of two minds. It's fine. Also, because some of you cowards that, because you feel you have a lot to lose, you'll come on board after the fact, and some of them will even say, "Oh, I knew that, whatever." But, you want to really show, stand with us and be part of this whole thing. I think, I do think there's a lot of validity to what I said before, that a lot of people had to, we all, myself included, we all had to go through the whole
Yeah.
phases of grief and acceptance of potentially a suicide. But as I said, even when you do accept that and it still doesn't track, what are you going to do? Deny it forever? And then when the evidence and the forensics are looked at and they're like, oh yeah, actually, no way he could have done this.
Hmm.
Determined as a murder, then what? You're going to look stupid. You don't want to look stupid, then maybe the conspiracy thing is usually where people don't want to look stupid, so they avoid it. This is not a conspiracy theory. We are not tinfoil hat people. And so, my friends, if you want to not look stupid, go ahead and join us, and or talk to us. Reach out to me privately. That's fine. I
Yeah,
will talk
absolutely.
to every single one of my friends, Francis, anyone. And, you know, we just want Kurt's legacy to be restored. The fact that it was a murder to be officially determined as the narrative, and beyond that, everyone's adjustment to it, that's on them.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a you problem for you
yeah.
people that just can't, like, no, no, the evidence was clear. Like, there's this new book out, and some people were talking about it. It's like, no, the author had dealt with suicide in their life, and so they project so clearly their own thing into the book and
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
read into his lyrics, and they,
Ugh.
as someone who talked to him,
Hmm.
I'm like, no, you're off. You're off base. You're definitely wrong.
Hmm.
So I'm grateful that I had that personal connection, uh, so I would know what I know, but it's also
Hmm.
been frustrating to know what I know and have this narrative just be like the S narrative. And I just
Hmm.
don't, you know, I'm tired of hearing it and I'm tired of hearing people rationalize. And that's the worst, is when they really just sort of like, oh, and then is what he was saying, and this and that and the other thing. It's like, dude, do you sign your first and last name on your suicide note? No, not so much. To your
Hmm.
family. No,
Hmm.
no.
Would
Sorry to go on.
No, please. That's exactly I really wanted to hear your reaction from the heart, and you always speak so authentically and truthfully, and we love that. So would Kurt do this for you or any one of his friends?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I after we talked and there was a few days, and then we spoke further, and I ended up getting involved and integrated into the group. I I had a little bit of internal backlash of guilt, thinking that Kurt would have done this for me, but he would have hopped on this earlier. And so, but that's sort of my own little survivor's guilt type of thing, I think. But yeah, no, he 100% would have done this for me. He was a genuinely good friend, and yeah,
I think we
yeah,
can tell from Frances Farmer will have her revenge on Seattle that he cared about justice and he cared about,
yeah.
the plight of other people too.
Oh,
So
and her story, God,
it's awful.
so yeah, he was yeah, her story was incredibly important to him, and just the tragedy of what happened to her, how she was in an institution and people would like literally line up to rape her, and just like this just horrific bullshit. And him writing that song shows his heart,
Yeah,
and yeah, and I'm right there with him on that, you know.
I agree. Thank you so much, Patrick, for coming on. You're like we
Yeah.
said, you're helping us out with a lot of things. You're part of our team, and we really appreciate it, and we love having you with us. Um, If you want to talk to Patrick, if you have any questions, he's fairly regularly posting on our Patreon. So make sure you join that. It's free. And we will talk to you again soon. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for watching and thanks for coming, Patrick. Appreciate you.
And if you talk to me on the YouTube comments, let's be aware I've got the Soundgarden Chris Cornell Black Hole Sun tape here. Actually, that's this one. Uh, and I've got another Nirvana tape, another Kurt tape. This is a Chris tape, a Soundgarden tape, and this is another Nirvana tape. So yeah, I've got a whole box of these things. And yeah, I just had to dig them out because some people are like, "Oh, well, let's see the stuff." It's like, yeah, it's stupid. It's just a tape. I mean, and honestly, in the modern world, you can find these things, these versions online. But yeah, like, and yeah, and so I don't know. That just to clear up the air and yeah,
Mm.
some of that stuff like Chris, they were recording at London Bridge Studios, which is like 3 blocks from my apartment, and again about 4 blocks from my work. So these were not weird moments like, oh, why the hell would Chris Cornell give you a tape? Because they're in the studio and recording, and I'm right there, and I'm his friend, and you know. So anyway, sorry, a little brief pushback on some troll type of
We,
things.
I mean, yeah, the comments have been so lovely about you, the vast majority of people.
I
And
have been honored.
yeah, and we again have been so honored to have you as part of our team. So we will leave this here. We're going to have probably a lot more questions. So
Mhm.
you and I have plans to do at least another 1 or 2 episodes, but at some point we'll take questions and maybe see if you want to pop on and answer those questions. And we will see you again soon, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Bye bye.